Today's topic of discussion: why your standards are lower than what you think. Listen to me when you genuinely believe that you have high standards. In the last video, we covered the difference between a declared standard and a demonstrated one. It's the standard that you talk about versus the standard that your behavior proves. And I've told you something that probably didn't fully land yet. So your real standard, the demonstrated one, is almost certainly lower than what you think it is. Not because you're lying to yourself on purpose, but because the gap is built to be invisible from the inside. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why you can't see your own standard clearly, and the specific places to look if you want to find out where it really sits. And here is why this is so hard to see on your own. You experience your life from the inside, in real time, one decision at a time. And every single one of those decisions, it comes with a reason why attached. You didn't skip the session because your standards are low. You skipped because you were tired, and then you'll make it up tomorrow. You didn't let the conversation go unresolved because your standard is low. You let it go because it wasn't the right time, and then you'll address it later. And you didn't accept less than you wanted because your standard is low. You accepted it because the circumstances were difficult, and that next time it will be different. Every single lowering of that standard comes with a reasonable, sound explanation. And because each one feels justified in the moment, you never experience them as a pattern. You experience them as individual, reasonable, one-off decisions. But your standard isn't built from how reasonable each decision felt. It's built from what you actually did, summed up over time. And the sum is always lower than the story. You can't see your real standard from inside the moment, because with each individual moment comes with its own preloaded justification. And the pattern, it only becomes visible from a distance. So if you can't see from the inside, where do you actually look? And there are three places. The first one is what you tolerate from other people. Not what you say that you'll tolerate, and what you actually do repeatedly when somebody treats you in a way that doesn't match the level of respect that you say you deserve. Your standard isn't the line you draw in a hypothetical conversation. It's the line you've actually held the last 5 times that it was tested. The second place is what you accept from yourself while nobody is watching. Public standards, now they're easy. Almost anyone can hold a high standard while they have an audience, even if they have a deadline or there's a consequence attached. But the real standard, that shows up in private. The version of you that exists only when there's no one to perform for, and there's nothing forcing your hand. What do you actually do in that version of your day? That's closer to the real number rather than anything that you claim out loud. The third place is what you stop being surprised by. And this one is the most reliable indicator, and it's the one that almost nobody checks. Whatever you are no longer reacting to, that thing that used to bother you and it now just doesn't, that is not progress. That's your standard quietly setting at a new level, and you're not even noticing that it's happened. If there was something that once felt unacceptable but it now feels normal, that's not you just becoming more relaxed. That's the bar moving down whilst you wasn't looking. Look at what you tolerate from others, what you do in private, and what is stopping surprising you. And those three tell you the truth about what the declared standard can't. But here's the part that makes this feel genuinely uncomfortable. But I want to say it directly rather than just softening it. The gap between your declared standard and your demonstrated one isn't static. It's not something that just happened once and it stayed fixed. And it's actively widening every time you let something slide. Because here's what happens psychologically. When you justify a lower standard rather than just naming it, you don't just lower the standard for that one moment. You quietly recalibrate what normal looks like. The next time that same situation comes up, that lowered version, it doesn't feel like a lowering anymore. It feels like your baseline. And this is how someone goes from holding a genuinely high standard to barely recognizing the person that they've become, without ever experiencing a dramatic moment of decline. It happens just one quiet, justifiable reasoning at a time. And the only way to stop that is to stop accepting that justification. Not the action itself, but that justification for that action, and taking it as the final word of what you're capable of. So remember, a lowered standard, it doesn't feel like a decline whilst it is happening. It feels like you're being reasonable. And that is exactly what makes it dangerous. So a real life experience for me where I experienced the lowering of my standards and I wasn't aware of it until I really started to pay attention to it was, again, in my business, where there were specific people that would come to me and they'd ask for support, they'd ask for guidance, they'd ask for time and energy and say they're seeking a solution rather than just bringing problems to me. And I would say, yes, I'm happy to help. I would give them the time, give them the effort, and then they would go away, do nothing with it and come back to me with the same problem a week later. And after 2 or 3 times of this happening, it was almost a case of me anticipating that they wasn't going to do anything with it and we were going to still be back at square one next week. So that was a point where I really noticed that my standards had been completely lowered to the point of I'm giving my time away, even though I know there's not going to be a result from this. So when I was able to really identify that, and I made the decision that I need to change my standards and raise them back to the level that I first believed they were and I was stating them to be. If I kept pouring time, energy and effort away to people that wasn't going to utilize it, I was going to continue to lower the bar of my standard, which would then get duplicated with everybody in my life. Meaning if I continued to do this again and again, I would never actually move further forward from where I was at that current time. So here are 3 steps on what to actually do with this. Number 1. Check the 3 places honestly. What have you tolerated from someone else the last 5 times that it came up? What do you actually do in the moments that nobody sees? What used to bother you that doesn't anymore? Write the honest answers down, not the answer that just makes you feel better. Number 2. Stop accepting your own justifications as evidence. The next time you catch yourself explaining away at a lower standard, just this once, when circumstances are different, pause before you accept that explanation as final. Ask if you'd accept that same explanation from someone else doing the same thing to you. And number 3, treat the recalibration as the real danger, not just a slip. One lowered moment is not the problem. The problem is when that moment becomes the new normal. Catch the recalibration before it sets and not after. So listen to me when you genuinely believe that you have high standards. Because you might. But the only way to know for certain isn't to ask what you would claim in a conversation. It's to look honestly at what you've tolerated, what you do in private, and what stops surprising you. That is where your real numbers live, not in what you say. Check what those last few months of that behaviour can actually prove. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about the place where this gap shows up the fastest and the most painfully, like relationships, and exactly what you will teach people by what you accept from them. So drop a comment below. What is something that used to bother you, but it doesn't anymore? Be honest, because that's your real standard talking. Remember, subscribe to the channel so the next video finds you when you need it. My name's Harley. Do the work, trust the process, and I'll see you in the next one.